Hey everybody, welcome back to RotoCurve.com. I'm Josh Collacchi, and let's get right into it. It's week 6 in NFL. It's week 6 on FanDuel. It's week 6 in daily fantasy sports NFL. So we're just going to get right into it. Of course, this is our second week doing this segment, talking about different players that we like in terms of value and in terms of production. And I think this week is going to be a good week simply because we'll be able to show you not only with our voices, but with notes below this video as well. And over on rotocurve.com, you can watch these as well, along with all the slideshows and everything else you can use to your advantage, all the free tools. So be sure to use RotoCurve to make your experience in daily fantasy sports a lot better and a lot more fun. So without further ado, let's go into this week for quarterbacks. The top guy I want to discuss is Carson Palmer at $8,000 on FanDuel. He faces the Pittsburgh Steelers at home. Of course, you look at the Steelers, and they've allowed the 11th most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. Now, that doesn't mean they're a top-tier echelon in terms of allowing these fantasy points, but if you look at the games that they've played, they've allowed some big games to some pretty good quarterbacks. As you can see, they allowed Rivers to throw for 365 yards, 2 touchdowns. Kaepernick threw for 335 and 2 touchdowns, and he's been struggling this year. And, of course, Tom Brady threw for 4 touchdowns against them in week 1. So you're looking at 3 quarterbacks that have the talent to beat a good defense, and that's exactly what Carson Palmer is going to do. Now, if you've seen on rotocurve.com, for those of you that have joined in, and for those of you that haven't, be sure to go over and check it out. One of the free tools we use is fantasy passing points per attempt. Palmer leads the NFL in that at 0.73 fantasy points per passing attempt. And that's a big thing because against a defense like the Pittsburgh Steelers, the way to attack them is through the air. And given the fact that the Carson Palmer led offense by the Arizona Cardinals throws a lot, this makes for an excellent play. Moving on is a guy that you pretty much have to consider almost every week at this point, and that's Tom Brady. He's very expensive at $9,000, but if you do want to spend up on a quarterback, this is the guy to look at. Faces the Indianapolis Colts at home, and Colts have actually been consistent in allowing fantasy points, and that's big for me in cash games because you want to find as consistent as an option as you can. They face the Colts, who have given up 15 fantasy points or more to opposing quarterbacks in each game this season, and look at the quarterbacks they've allowed to kind of beat them. Ryan Fitzpatrick, you can see 244 yards and 2 touchdowns. Marcus Mariota, the rookie, for 367 and 2. And the Texans quarterbacks by the name of Ryan Mallett, and actually Brian Hoyer came in and got most of those stats in the second half, threw for 362 and 2 touchdowns. So we're talking about 3 or 4 quarterbacks that really aren't the top tier in the league in terms of talent and in terms of ability. So if they can torch the Colts, imagine what Tom Brady can do. Brady's thrown the ball 160 times in 4 games, which is an average of about 40 times per game. He's averaging 0.62 fantasy points per game, which is one of the tops in the NFL in terms of fantasy points per passing attempt, which we just discussed with Palmer. So considering he is very efficient, he throws a lot, and he gets a matchup in the Colts, it makes for an excellent play. He's a good play once again at $9,000. Now, again, for those of you that are in the narratives, you can tell that this is the first time that the Patriots have faced the Colts since the whole Deflategate thing has happened. And, of course, if you read into that, you know that the Colts were the ones that probably set this off and kind of let this come to light. And, of course, they gave the information to the Ravens last year. So considering that could happen, we all know how the Ravens like to put the pedal on the metal, and Brady's the offense behind that. And if he's the facilitator, he gets all the points. So be sure to keep an eye on him for pretty much any reason you can possibly think of. Now, those are 2 expensive quarterbacks. Let's move on to a cheaper guy, Colin Kaepernick, this week, $7,300. Now, he has not been the same guy that we saw in the playoffs 2 years ago. He lost a little bit of weapons. He's lost his offensive line. The defense is retired, and we're starting to see him struggle a little bit. But this week he faces the Baltimore Ravens, who have allowed the most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks this season. When you count for rushing statistics, they have allowed 2 rushing touchdowns, and we all know about Kaepernick's ability to run the football. The reason why I like Kaepernick, though, is through 5 games, you look at the splits and you look at how he's done against certain matchups and other matchups. In good matchups, he has 20.78 fantasy points or FanDuel points and 26.5 FanDuel points against the Giants and the Steelers, both of which are good matchups. In bad matchups like the Vikings, Cardinals, and Packers, he's only combined for 30 points. So That shows you that he's a very good quarterback in fantasy if he faces a good matchup, and that's exactly what he has against the Baltimore Ravens. So if you want to spend on a guy, I really like Tom Brady, and I think Carson Palmer is going to be my top guy in cash simply because of the consistency, the efficiency, and the fact is that Bruce Arians and that Cardinals offense will always be throwing the ball regardless of the score. Now, I do like Tom Brady for $1,000 more if you can afford him, and my cheap guy, a guy I'll probably be using in tournaments more, is Colin Kaepernick. So that has been RotoCurve's edition of Week 6 FanDuel NFL quarterbacks. Be sure to keep an eye on the rest of these videos on this channel. And as always, check out RotoCurve.com, as you can see everything on here for free. You get free tools, free analysis, and everything you can think of to help make this week and the rest of your weeks a profitable one in NFL DFS. Good luck, everybody.